Story 1. I should talk to HR about leave if I'm legitimately having trouble at work 1 week before my due date? Sure thing, boss.
This happened last year. I, F31, was 1 week away from my due date and was working full-time in a school administration position. At this time I had the capability to work from home if needed, too sick to come into work, catch up on extra work, unable to secure daycare for my child, etc. When I accepted the position, prior to my pregnancy, I was told by my boss, let's call her Ronnie, that it was very flexible as long as I got my hours in. I very rarely worked from home and typically only did so for an hour or two in the morning if it was needed later on in order to work before OBGYN appointments, as it was a long commute between work and home/doctor office. However, I was told by Ronnie after accepting the position to try and limit WFH to 2 days a month, which fine, at this point I was well under since I was only working an hour or two maybe twice a month, and only once a month before that. Being so close to my due date, I was experiencing physical hardships that made working on site more and more difficult, such as dizzy spells, a pulled tendon in my foot, and severe back pain. I was also scared of potentially going into labor while at work, with it being so far away from the hospital my OBGYN delivers at. To top it all off, my coworkers started asking more invasive questions about my pregnancy that made me uncomfortable. All in all, it was not a fun time. I explained all of this in an email to Ronnie and asked for her permission to almost exclusively work from home up until I go into labor. I said I thought it would be a reasonable accommodation and I work really well from home. Ronnie responded a couple days later denying my request to work from home at all and said I needed to be there since we would be starting some of our busiest work in a couple months, which I would be gone for on maternity leave anyways, so I'm not sure why she brought it up, but I could talk to HR about leave options if I am truly having trouble working. By the way, it is illegal in my state to require an employee to take leave if there is a reasonable accommodation that can be made instead. Cue malicious compliance. I immediately went to HR and did just that. We talked about options and found out I could start my leave the very next day and still be paid state mandatory leave pay for the extra time. I informed Ronnie that I would be out starting the next day as I needed to take care of myself. She said, I understand you need to do what's best for you, but you need to understand that I need to do what's best for the team. So, yeah, everything I normally managed basically went to crap in my absence as the other people on the team weren't qualified to do the work and kept taking time off leading up to my due date instead of learning the basics while I was still there to teach them. I left detailed procedure notes and workflow lists, but I later found out Ronnie had to pick up all the extra work and a lot of it never got done since she didn't have time. But it was best for the team, right, boss?
Comment 1. Sucks to suck. Good for you, OP. I'm glad you got some well-deserved paid time off to rest before the baby got here.
Comment 2. I need to do what's best for the team. And apparently it's better to not have you work at all than to have you work from home. Manglement can be so effing stupid.
Comment 3. Wait, you were expected to be working 1 week before your due date? Is this normal where you are? I swear people here normally start pregnancy leave 3 to 4 weeks ahead of their due date. In part, I'm sure, because going into labor at work sounds like a great way to generate avoidable paperwork.
Comment 4. Had a manager ask a colleague if she could delay her due date by 2 weeks. The stares he got was hilarious.
Comment 5. Idiots on power trips. Comment 6. Looks like Ronnie's power tripping tripped her up, wouldn't you say? Great job.
Story 2. Father's Day is right around the corner. It has begun.
3 wrenches were purchased to get me through the year, arrived, and now this Father's Day will be wrench number 55. For a quick backstory, my father once jokingly suggested I lost a wrench. We both know he lost himself. This became a thing until I got sick of it and warned him that if he mentioned it ever again, he would be getting a 7/16 Craftsman ratchet end wrench for every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of his natural life. Then he said it again. That was 54 wrenches ago. Hell hath no fury like a wrench never lost. Link to the original in case you think I'm insane /.
Comment 1. Sounds like wholesome compliance to me. Comment 2. Think I'll tell my son he lost my 10 millimeters.
Comment 3. This is my favorite Reddit story. I may delete my account now because nothing can top this. Comment 4. What does he do with them? You have to admit, that would be a lethal game of Jenga.
Comment 5. Head on over to our /broshit to see if anyone has a pattern for a stuffed wrench. Could be pillow-sized. You could also cross-stitch one, bake wrench cookies, carve up a wrench roast, get a miniature doll wrench and stick it on a pin, pajamas out of tulle fabric, wrench socks, wrench tote. The possibilities are endless.
Comment 6. Awesome, you still continue with it. Edit. Also convenient that you never have to think about a new idea for a gift.
Story 3. Know how much you can lift.
Back in high school, during my freshman year, I was on the football team. For my high school, if you were on the football team, you were required to have one weightlifting class, fall semester, per year, since the weightlifting coach was the football coach and he could put you on a specialized training separate from the other students in the class. I normally train with one of my defensive end, buddies since we lifted relatively close to each other, so most workouts we wouldn't have to change the weights after each set, and we could take a reasonable break between sets. One guy on the team, a backup CB, cornerback, was usually way too cocky for his own good, always trying to show up his teammates. It's also important to note that he was about 50 pounds lighter than us and didn't do hardly any lifting. One day me and DE were going for our 1-rep max squats. I think at the time we had about 255 on the bar. CB walked over with a smug look on his face that had "I'm better than you" written all over it. He told us that it looked easy and he could lift it no sweat. We told him it's definitely heavier than anything we've seen him lift. His confidence didn't falter though, he doubled down on his stance. Then he says to let him get one in. I look to DE. DE looks at me. Okay, fine, go ahead. Do you want spotters? Nah, this is easy, I don't need your help. I look at DE. DE looks at me. We took a step back and watched. To his credit, he was at least able to get it up off the hooks and onto his shoulders. His legs were shaking though, he clearly was struggling, but he very clearly said he could do it and he didn't want any help, so we didn't help him. CB squat and didn't get back up. If there weren't guards to save him, he definitely would have been stuck there for a bit, cause DE and I were fully ready to not help him at all. CB walked away embarrassed and coach, who was apparently behind us when this whole thing happened, just laughed and told us, while funny, to not do that again. Coach referenced that moment several times during the season and thankfully CB was a good sport about it all. We were cool for the rest of the season. Edit to clarify, Coach made it an unbreakable rule that no matter if you have spotters or not, you would always squat with bumper safeties under you. So when he squatted and got himself stuck, all he had to do was let go of the bar and roll forward. No need to wait for someone to help you, especially since the weight could be really heavy. Highest max I saw was 415, and many people only had one partner instead of two.
Comment 1. I have a friend who in high school was the muscle. But sensibly. We didn't have a good budget, so 450 was the max of weight we could do due to plate and bar size. Well, other people did while I was picking up 10 pounds with 2 hands. He benched that easy. The incline squat was his to rule, however. You're laying on your back and pushing a sled with your legs at a 45-degree angle to the floor. Sled was 50 pounds empty. These guys could just barely fit 550 on the bar, 600 total. My friend kept hitting the stops because it wasn't enough weight for him to struggle. I got called over. How much you weigh? As of last week, 97 pounds. I was promptly picked up and set on the sled. He did 10 reps and set a school record that stood until the gym was refurbished in 2008. My friend would go on and find out his max was around 750 while he played for Notre Dame. And they said that he wasn't big enough to get on the field. Coincidentally, he's been a kindergarten teacher for 15 years. Yes, he gets asked the question. No, it's still not a tuma.
Comment 2. I always thought spotters were there for safety.
Comment 3. Heh. I was the scrawny nerd in weightlifting, but I'd ridden bicycles almost competitively. Leg day came around and one of the football guys noticed I wasn't at all struggling with whatever weight. They put all the plates on it. My thighs could lift it. One guy climbed on it. I launched him. Still scrawny AF and couldn't curl or bench shit, but at least I wasn't made as much fun of. Comment 4. I've had several teens, mainly runners, complaining that the throwers only sits looking at their phones and talking during practice in the winter season. Well, winter season is build-up season for shot putters, discus, javelin, and hammer throwers. That means tough strength training with and without weights, and with that comes longer recovery periods where they can sit and talk. To this day, not one of those complaining has come and asked to do the throwers' practice routine again after having been put through it once. Comment 5. Once you learn how to bail both forwards and backwards, safeties/spotters are recommended, but not necessary.